Raz.
And a PV powered. We want to really welcome you, Mr. Rasas, and thank you for joining us. On the other end, we also have Mr. Adam Blazowiski, who has 15 years in energy industry with a focus on clean technologies. And he has also, he's also a co-founder with the Polish Water for Climate, which began with climate protests against closure of nuclear power plants in Germany. Currently, he's working as a chair of the We Planet Alliance Board. On the other end, also, we have our director here for We Planet Africa. And I think this is a team of big panelists with very good opinions, and they're good for this discussion. Without taking so much of our time, I think also before we begin, I want to propose that if you have any questions, please let's post them in the chat space. It's going to be open at any time you wish to send in any questions. We'll be able to them. Also, I want to request that at all times, let's try to keep our microphones quite off, I think, for purposes of having a nice conversation. I want to begin with our director here at We Planet. And I think for us to have this discussion, we need to first define what are we looking at when we talk about universal access to energy or electricity in this case. And where are we as Africa? Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you, Perez. Good afternoon, everyone. You're very welcome to this webinar. When we talk about universal access of electricity, what do we mean? We mean universal, 100%. Not 100% in urban areas and 30% in rural areas, but 100% access to an electric grid in all areas of Africa. And where are we? I think most African countries are between, I would put it 25 to 35 access. And for purposes of this discussion, let us limit Africa to sub-Saharan Africa. And that will remove South Africa at the bottom and then, you know, Arab Africa at the top. So these figures do not represent those two parts of Africa, which are a bit more developed than the bigger sub-Saharan Africa. So in sub-Saharan Africa, I would put the average at about 30% electrification, and most of that is in urban areas. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. And I think that is a very good outlook of the energy access. But for me, I want to pick the mind of Adam. When we talk about electricity or energy access, universal energy, access to energy, from where you come from, how would you define that? How would you define that?
Well, can you hear me well?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Welcome, everyone. I'm really honored to be invited here, and very glad that I can share some thoughts about this. My country of origin is Poland, which is the country between Germany and Ukraine. And as a Central European country, we have this history of electrification. And to give you a context of how it happened, in the 19th century, when all the countries, the Western Europe was developing and growing and industrializing, Poland did not exist. Poland as a country did not exist because it was at that time governed by other empires around, and the country was really not developed compared to all the other nations in the west of Europe. And then after First World War, Poland became independent, and it became an independent country with huge lag in development. The electrification was sporadic. There were small power plants powering nearby cities. but not really universal at all. And the electrification was going slow. And then after Second World War, Poland became the part of the Soviet bloc and began extensive electrification. And this was possible because Poland has obviously a lot of coal. And coal was the source of our first electricity in many areas, also small hydroelectric. What is interesting is that by 1960, so we are talking 15 years after the war, the communist government has electrified every single village in Poland. So we're talking 15 years after the war and 15, 20 years after the war, every single village was electrified. And historically, this was one of the reasons why communism and this undemocratic rule of law at the time was unfortunately popular among the rural population because they promised electrification. Nobody promised this before. And for the people in the villages, this was something, this was a development. This was just having electricity at your home was so important and so critical that it was possible. So right now, since 1960, a lot has changed. Poland is now still electrified and now a democratic country, a member of the European Union. But we still have a huge dependence on coal, and we have to move away from it because of climate change. So this becomes a big issue. So with that sense, a rapid and universal electrification is absolutely a prerequisite to further development. And human species, people need electricity for life. And I'm strongly in a position that electricity is a basic human right that needs to be provided. So now what we are facing is we have to move away from fossil fuels. We have to move away from coal, which still provides about 70% of our electricity. And we have to do it in a way that does not exclude anybody and that it is affordable. And it's quite a challenge. So this is why we opt for a pragmatic, evidence-based approach in this, and we don't want to exclude any kind of energy sources. This is why we had a dispute with other countries in Europe. Some countries want to move away from clean nuclear power, and we think it should be part of the transition. Also, Polish Academy of Science took a very strong position on this, that it says we need to go for renewable energy, we need to go for nuclear. And so in Poland, this is a matter of making or not making the carbon neutrality in 2050 to use all the sources. And this is where we are right now.
Thank you so much, Adam. And I think you paint a very good picture, and this helps me walk to Mr. Erastus. Madam Patricia noted that universal access speaks to 100% access to electricity, not 100% in urban areas and 20 or almost 0% in rural areas. And from what Adam says, he speaks about their outlook of that in Poland. You work with the Rural Electrification Agency, according to one profile. What could be hindering this electrification model so that we actually have universal access to it?
Thank you so much.
I think we can't hear you well.
Can you hear me now?
Very well. You're very good.
Yes. I was connecting via Bluetooth because I'm still transiting work institution. So I was saying I wanted to acknowledge first of all we permit alternative opportunity to be part of this noble panel as we discuss how we are going to switch on Africa and as we are demystifying the status quo of electrification in Africa at all as compared to other continents. My name is Erastus Musyoka, as professor introduced, working with the Rural Electrification and Renewable Energy Corporation, which is a state agency in Kenya, mandated for the grid extension projects, that is the rural electrification, and also the agency in charge of the renewable energy mandate for establishment in Kenya currently. So in regard to rural electrification and how is it that we can be able to achieve or accelerate, when we talk of Africa, we are talking about accelerating that universal access, because as things stand, more than 600 million Africans have still not been able to access electrification currently. While my brother Adam is talking of Poland being well electrified in each and every village, in Africa we still have 600 millions grappling with the lack of electrification, and some of the models being adopted, and talking of Kenya specifically, where it is our jurisdiction for the time being, and maybe in extension East African Power Pool, I would say that adoption of rural electrification program, which for instance in Kenya is domiciled in the REREC, that is the organization which I'm working for. It is the only model which we will be able to attain this universal access. And how is it that we will be able to access or to attain this universal access? It's first by having an elaborate governmental framework. That is the policy frameworks which are in support of rural electrification in our countries and in Africa as a continent. Then the other aspect which we will have, other than just the frameworks, we need also to get the political goodwill, because there is quite of an issue between the political class and having the electrification of the rural areas. Why? Because electrification being a basic need or a basic commodity, as Adam has insinuated, it is the requirement of each and every person, regardless of your location. Whether you are in the urban area or you are in the rural area, you desire or you have to be connected to electrification. Why? Because we depend on electricity for having universal health care. We need electricity for just the production for each and every capital investment to be done in a country. Electricity is like a basic need. So for us to be able to attain or to switch on Africa, as per the theme of our webinar, we need to have good models, a good program which is fully in support of the political class, good establishment of legal and maybe contractual frameworks, which they are even opening up the space of electrification to the private sector. Because if we bring in the private sector in the rural electrification program, they will be able to source or to give us more and more resources, which we will be able to exploit in order to attain this rural electrification. The reason being, depending on the government or the exchequer program only, the government is trying to strike a balance between other needs like education, like provision of food, like provision of water, health services. And now you find that the budgets which are being channeled towards rural electrification, they may be a bit limited. But now if we have a dedicated program or a dedicated investment towards rural electrification, we will be able to attain this universal access. As a corporation working currently in Kenya, I may maybe mention a few things or a few programs which we have been able to roll out to see Kenya reach. We are enjoying at least 75% on average of electrification as a country in Kenya. Why? Because we have measured on the grid extension to the rural areas, and currently, for us to be able to reach the rural areas, Of course, there are those flagship locations, like the public amenities. You need to reach to the schools, you need to reach to the maybe social amenity centers like the churches, the markets, you need to reach maybe to water points. And once you electrify these particular or strategic public facilities, it is now easier to do a maximization project to enhance the reticulation of electricity to the rural areas. Now, that is the part of grid extension. When we talk about the other parts which are not reached by the grid current, or which we term as the off-grid areas. In REREC currently, or else in Kenya, we may boast of 47 off-grid electrification projects. That is, we have 27 mini grids which are powered through solar PV, and we also have 20 mini grids which are powered through isolated diesel gensets. And by doing so, we have seen maybe the level of electrification in Kenya being boosted a bit high, and that the areas which are unreached by the grid, they are actually in the plan of being given the access to electrification. So by adopting such off-grid programs, we will be able to attain rural electrification and also accelerate this universal access in our continent, in Africa. Thank you so much.
Yes. Thank you so much, Erastus. And I think you actually touched a couple of elements there, because once look at some of what's hindering the access to universal access to electricity, and you've given us a little bit more of what actually you're doing as an agency. But right now I want to switch to Patricia and also borrow a few words from Adam. Adam said, electricity is it's a basic human right, and of course I wouldn't want to ask you if you agree with this, Patricia, but I would want to know, what are we actually undertaking? Erastus talked about Switch on Africa. The flyer has Switch on Africa. We've been talking about Switch on Africa. Now, I'm trying to ask, what are we doing to actually achieve this as an organization? What are you doing to be sure that we get there? Before we look at what actually Erastus want to elaborate more about what you actually gave us, what initiatives are we looking at?
Okay, great. Thank you, Perez. I would like to just go back briefly and correct the figures that I shared with us. I have been informed that the sub-Saharan African average of electrification is 43%, and Uganda stands at 42%. So in Uganda, we are just slightly below the sub-Saharan average, and we've learned that our Kenyan neighbors are way higher than the average, and they're at 75%. So that is how Africa is, behaving along the continuum of access. What are we doing? What is Switch on Africa about, basically? So Switch on Africa is a campaign that is being spearheaded by We Planet Africa, but it's for the entire We Planet network. And in this campaign, we are seeking a 5 to 10-fold increase in access, in consumption of electricity in Africa. I would just like to point out that consumption and access are different things. There are several homes on this continent where there is a grid. It actually passes in front of their home, but they are not connected for reasons of affordability. So having access to a grid does not necessarily mean that people are actually using electricity. So I would like for us grid access is very good, but it doesn't bring about real tangible change. So I would like for us to have a conversation of consumption. And that is what Switch on Africa is about, that we want to increase by 5 to 10-fold the number of African households that can actually access, afford, and consume electricity. And when we talk about consumption, what is it that we want from this campaign as we plan it? We just don't want a light bulb. And this is what is happening in rural electrification. A house has a few light bulbs and we say kudos, those people have electricity. We want more. We want to consume electricity the way our Western counterparts do. The way Adam consumes electricity. And that means we can light, we can use it for all our gadgets. If you have a computer, you can charge your phone, you have a TV, you can run your washing machine, you can put on, you can use electricity to cook and also preserve your food. But also away from the household, these, especially the small cottage industries. And as I'm speaking, I request that Ian may line up our short Switch on Africa video so that we play it after. And I don't have to go on and on. And also when it comes to the small cottage industries, the small industries in our, in our villages, people who run maize mills, that they're able to run their maize mills on electricity. So that is what we are demanding. And then you will say, you're demanding it from who? We are demanding this access from the energy enablers, the people who are putting money behind electrification. These people are the World Bank. These people are the European Commission, the European Union, and these people are USAID. The World Bank has put a lot of money in rural electrification, and we say, thank you very much. We want 100%. Okay, we want our women to stop cooking using charcoal and firewood to cooking using electricity. This should not be a luxury. This should be a human right. Because when we look at the lifestyle that is being forced on us as African women because of lack of electricity because of lack of access to electricity, we are seeing health challenges. The data is very clear that 600,000 women lose their lives due to indoor air pollution, or what UNICEF has called silent suffocation, because we are cooking on open fires that have smoke, and that smoke has particulate matter. We see this particulate matter when we look at our kitchens. They are covered in black soot. So that soot that goes onto our kitchens is also going into the lungs of African women and children. And this is bringing about premature deaths of 600,000 women on the continent. And that is because we cannot afford electricity. I would like to pause at this moment and let everyone listening to us know that poverty is not African. Poverty is poverty. Poverty and Africa do not go hand in hand. I am African because I live on this continent and because my skin produces more melanin than other people in the world. I am not African because I am poor. So these synonyms that we have that we have sort of ingrained in our minds, that being African means you're poor, means African means that when you grow old, you have to bend over because you spent all your life hunching over a hole or hunching over an open fire. Those are the things that we want to bring to an end in this campaign. We don't want electricity for electricity's sake. We want electricity because it can enable our children to study at night. They can have access to computers, just like their counterparts in the West. It can enable our women to spend little time cooking and looking for firewood so that they can go out in the workplace and earn a living for themselves and their families. It can spare time for children who go around looking for pieces of sticks called firewood, and they can be in class. It can also save our forests and also save us from the rigors of washing and all those mundane household activities. So I can go on and on about electricity, poverty, women, emancipation, and children, and then I'll lose track. So, but that is what we want. And we're asking the energy enablers to please increase their funding to our governments I have been reading about Power Africa, a USAID project, and they're doing a great job increasing grid access in Uganda and in Africa generally. You're doing a great job. Thank you very much. Please increase your budgets by 10 times. If you've been giving us $100 million, 100 by 100, Perez, what do we get? $1 billion?
I think that's
Yes.
10,000.
That,
but I don't know, that's 10,000 million. I think that would be 10 billion USD.
yeah. So that is the kind of increase that we are looking at. If you've been giving us $5 million, multiply that by 10, and we're saying give us $50 million so that we can accelerate, and this conversation can end, and we can talk about other things, and we can save our forests and so many other things. Ian, please play the Switch on Africa video, or Perez, whoever is in charge, so that people can see what it is that Switch on Africa is aiming for. And while the video is, while you're sharing your screen, whoever is playing the video, there are two kinds of people that we are targeting in this campaign: the energy enablers, but also the African citizens. Most of us here are African citizens. We are not the ones who fund electrification. We also have a request for you. There is something that we've started, which is called the Reduced Charcoal Pledge. And we are asking all African citizens to sign that pledge and reduce the charcoal usage in your home. So that is the contribution that you can make. While we are telling the funders, reduce the price of electricity, we are asking Africans in your own household, reduce your charcoal usage by 50%. We are not asking for 100% because we know it's impossible now. In the villages, your grandparents, your mothers, your fathers, please go and transition them. For firewood, we're asking for at least 100%. Transition them from firewood, put them on charcoal and gas as we work on bringing the cost of electricity down. And as the webinar comes to an end, we shall ask everyone to please let us know on a scale of 0 to 10, how much charcoal are you using in your house? And we are also going to ask you to sign the pledge. We shall follow up and find out how you're reducing charcoal in your household. And maybe we can now play the video.
Obuzibu obusooka
Can you hear the audio?
bwakubeera nti amasannyalaze gatusumbuwa mu kuvaavaako.
Ebyuma bagamba bitwala nnyo amasannyalaze ebya chipusi n'enkoko, kati awo mba sisobola kubigula nga amasannyalaze gabbeeyi. Kati obudde buno ndabisa TV na ttaala.
Mu lunaku gasobola obutabeerako olunaku lunene biggwako olw'emisana, olumu ne gamala ennaku nga 2 nga tegannadda. Sola tetuzirinaako, ne bwe zaalibadde kweziri ziyinza tuyambako mataala gokka.
Akageri gy'ebintu ekozesa baatule eyo nga sola. Baatule etuuka yo meka ate olwo olina kunoonya ssente zigula ndala. Kati ate yo bw'eba efudde balisobola kwakisa mataala. Maani waba wakusoma kitabo batasobola kusoma batakirako.
Twalibadde tukozesa generator, naye generator esobola okulwaninga ebyuma bino mashini zino. Eba nnene nnyo era baya ssente nnyingi nnyo.
Chipusi nzifumbisa nku naye ng'enkungulangule.
Enku bwe mba nga ngenze kuzigula akanywa katonotono era bakaguza 5,000 3.
Olusekese nze engeri gye nkola emisana lukola olunaku lumu.
Omukuulu tetuganye luwomesa emmere naye nago bwe mba nga ffuna mba nsobola okugafumbirako yadde eyebadde nsanya.
Engayo kositi eri mu siringisi nga 3 per unit.
Masannyalaze nandibadde ngamba bwe nti ne bagakendeezaako ebbeeyi ne tusobola okugakozesa.
At least oyinza okukola naawe n'ofissaako.
Yes, Thank you. Thank you so much for really playing for us that video. And I think it sums up a lot of what Patricia was trying to talk to us about. Something about 100% access to electricity, more than a light bulb. We are talking about 5 to 10%, 5 to 10-fold access to electricity. But I think I want to come to you, Adam. When Patricia was talking, I think what I actually liked from the submission, Adam, was electricity being a basic human right. And Patricia brought up when she was trying to define switch on Africa, she says we want to achieve access, want to be able to afford, want to be able to consume. Now, when Erastus was speaking, also he brought up a few things that they are doing in Kenya to achieve this. But I want to pick from your mind, Adam, from where you are. Do you really think we are taking the right direction? In this, I'm trying to ask you, how do you think we can actually achieve this? How can we be able to access, afford, and consume electricity, from your opinion?
I think this is the only way to develop. I don't think humanity and humans can flourish without electricity. It's very very difficult to do. And I think it's great that the electrification moves forward. It's bad that it's slow. And just having any kind of electricity is not enough. Because if you don't have stable electricity, you are not going to have jobs. You're not going to have industry. You're not going to have production. Maybe it's enough for home. Maybe it's enough for studying, or maybe it's enough just to keep your phone charged. But what you really need, and we have this discussion in Poland right now, you have to have reliable and stable electricity. So, because if you have this interrupted electricity access, then the normal business and normal production cannot be done. In 2015, we had a situation in Poland where partially due to climate change, we had a huge heat wave, which affected some of our thermal plants, and we could not produce enough electricity. And at the same time, this was summer, and at the same time, other power plants and our interconnectors were blocked. And for, I think, 2 weeks, Poland had to institute reductions in electricity consumption for the industry. And this was such an enormous shock for the industry and for the businesses. They started to complain to the government. They say, we have contracts, we have obligations, we promised our suppliers and our customers that we deliver, and now we have to reduce our electricity. And politically, this was completely unacceptable, that there is even a reduction in electricity. So electricity consumption is absolutely critical. What we discuss in Poland, because after the war in Ukraine, after the Russian invasion of Ukraine, there was a shock in the market and the prices of electricity exploded. The government decided to freeze them, and so that people are not affected. And what is openly discussed is that we have some kind of a basic tariff for everybody. So everybody is entitled to at least 1 megawatt hour of electricity at a very, very, very low price. And then everything you consume above, then you pay the market or more. And I think this is something that can resolve the issue that Patricia mentioned, that people live next to the power line and they are not consuming because they cannot afford it. So it is, yes, it is a government decision to make this kind of basic tariff for everybody, because if people have this, if people have this basic access, then they can be more productive, and then they can learn and educate themselves. They can grow. They can get jobs. They have more time for being more productive, and then they can generate more revenue for the government. So it is an investment in the long run if you take care that all your people have decent access to electricity, it is an investment. It is not only a right thing to do. After 5, after 10, after 15 years, you will see the growth of the economy when people have access to electricity. And there is a wide difference in how electricity is consumed. In Poland, it's about 4 megawatt-hours per year. In China, that's 5.5. But there are regions in China that only 1 megawatt-hour is consumed. The average citizen of India is consuming as much electricity as my fridge at my home. You know, this is completely unacceptable. And at the same time in America, this is 11 megawatt-hours. So there is a huge, huge difference. And what we actually do in my country, this is my job, as we invest in energy efficiency. So we do projects that save electricity, and by generating money from the saving, we are also paying ourselves. So this is an also business opportunity if you can do this kind of optimizations. But it's an absolute prerequisite that the electricity is available and it's stable, because without stable electricity, you cannot really have services and production and industry. So the connectors between countries are important, and the grid needs to be interconnected so that you can, even if there is a failure in one place, another one can fulfill and help the other. So that's general overview that I would have for this.
Yes, thank you so much, Adam. Please, our participants, this discussion ongoing also in the chat page to follow it along. But I want to also build on what you're giving us, and you're saying humans can't develop without really access to electricity, and you're quoting all these figures. I want to invite the rest, and just briefly, also want to relate to the question that I think Bernard is asking in the chat space on how can we sustain a subsidy. But the fact that you actually work with this electrification agency or even renewable energy commission in Kenya, I'd want to also ask you the same. I think there is a big discussion here that is actually coming up, that people don't have to feel the impact of some of these maybe if for example from Adam's commission, that the government is able to hold on to some of the costs so that people are not affected. We want to know how could we explore this for Africa. Is it even possible for African governments? Do you think it's something we can explore here in Africa, so that people or consumers, our grassroots communities, can with these high tariffs in electricity?
Thank you so much, ladies.
Please a little bit louder. I don't know.
Yes, you can hear me now?
Yes, better.
Yes, what I was saying is just appreciating my fellow panelists for the contributions that they have made, and also the participants for the chats. I can see they are actually stating facts, these chats, because as we are talking about exploring, as we are talking about universal access, as Patricia has just opined in her submission, she says that access does not guarantee consumption, because that's where we are having a challenge. Maybe I can build a case at hand in some of our projects in Kenya, where you will find that we have established an off-grid system which has a potential to our around 500 customers. But even the people at the ground, do they have the willingness to pay? Do they have the capacity? Are they able? So you find out that at the end of all these mega projects which has been brought to the locality, we are only having electrification as a bulb. And that is what we are having in this conversation, that we need to shift this mentality that electrification is only talking about lighting and having just a bulb in a particular house, where the consumption will be so minimal and it is actually uneconomical even for the government. And more so, speaking of that, or in that note, is that with this uneconomical consumption of power, it is difficult for the government to sustain these subsidies. Actually, they are impossible because they will always be siphoning power from the government coffers, siphoning power time and time again. And it will be like a vicious cycle. We have to get money from the government. We have to do the installation of power grids to the villages, but we cannot guarantee return of investments. The reason being that we do not have strategic, productive use of electricity in these localities. So what I may urge our power investors or even the investors who are goodwilling for the African nation is that as we are channeling our finances to invest in power production, to invest in access to energy, can we also have the same energy channels towards productive use of energy in these areas? In that we are educating, we are building capacity for our people, in that when electricity or electrification comes to your locality, what are some of the productive uses you can be able to employ this electricity for, so that you can ensure sustainability of these projects, that you are able even to pay for this electricity. You are generating income, you are creating employment in such a way, and that you will find if we have this concerted effort from all stakeholders, and that we are having a dynamic investments being channeled towards productive use, that is empowering our local citizens. We are empowering the villages. We are empowering each and every person, leaving no one behind, be it in the urban, be it in the off-grid areas, be it in the peri-urban, that we are really training them on the productive uses of energy. I think we will be having a particular balance in our this nexus of electrification, having access and having the consumption upgraded. So some of the projects or some of the low-hanging fruits which we may propose to the investors, to the power investors in Africa, is that let's now channel some finances or channel some investment in capacity building, that we are able to establish productivity at those areas where we are also extending the grid. Because a case at hand here in Kenya, we're having an organization by the name Kenya Climate Innovators Center, where we are having small and medium enterprises being trained on some of the productive uses of energy, or some of the productive uses of renewable energy they are being to employ, or they are able to roll out to those very areas. Like if we can have maybe like electric bikes, for instance, then do we establish those charging stations at those off-grid areas? One, we will have created an anchor load for this particular project of electrification, and we are actually ensuring sustainability of the same. So without ensuring that we have this balance between the access, the consumption, and the productive use, we may keep talking of a vicious cycle of saying Africa is poor and we are not able to explore this universal electrification and even boosting our consumption, which is a key ingredient to ensuring that we have sustainability in all this. Because depending on the government alone to channel finances to ensure access to electricity, it will be a challenge. Then maybe another thing which we need to consider is that we need our governments or our regulators or our sectors to a little bit flex the regulations of letting in private investment in electrification. I think this will be a great move and a great deal to ensuring sustainability in our universal access club. Thank you so much.
Yes, thanks so much, Erastus. And I think I really like the submission here. You're saying the lack of willingness to pay, but also I think this is caused by lack of productive use of electricity among the people we actually bring electricity to be the reason why we may not ably sustain this. I want to, of course, as we conclude, we are drawing a conclusion. I'm just going to give us a few minutes, and I think most of these are pointers, and most of what we discuss here will be pushed to the responsible persons, of course, out in media, and that is why we are holding some of these discussions. I want us just as we conclude, you notice that lack of electricity in this case, but also even when electricity has been accessed and people are unable to use it, there is a tendency that people are going to resort to using unclean energy sources, either firewood or charcoal and all that. Now, I just want us to just paint a small picture from each one of you as we can, and of course with your small concluding remarks. And I also want to be looking at the chat and see some questions came in. What price are we likely to pay if we fail to transition now? Because electricity hasn't come to us, or maybe it has come, like Erastus is saying, and people are not using it. I think that's also something to put question. But of course, you also feel free to give your submissions on that from the other panelists. What price are we likely to pay if we are not in sources of energy, or even using electricity, for example, to cook as a means of clean cooking alternatives? What price are we likely to pay? Of course, Patricia has already noted 600,000 women dying in Africa. I think there could be many more other costs, but I want you to paint a small picture into what we are likely to face or pay as a price if we are not able to transition now. And the participants, please, in the meantime, I think as we also conclude, we want to know how much charcoal are you using in your homes. Feel free to just, it is from 0 to 10 in the chat space. You're able to just tell us how much charcoal you're using. We want to also have this as a statistic collected today. How much charcoal are you using in your home? 0 could mean that you're not using any charcoal at all. Probably you transition to some other alternative. It could be gas, it could be electricity. And 10 is 100% charcoal, or you could say maybe 100%. I think firewood at some point had been given 15%, but want to know how much of that you're using in your homes. Now back to the panelists, please. What price are we likely to pay if we don't transition now? Building on to some of those few cases that you pointed out. And I'm going to begin with Adam, Patricia, and we'll end with Erastus, just in 1 or 2 minutes. Adam, please.
So if I understand, the question is how much should be paid for electricity, or what should be the price?
How much are we likely to pay if we don't transition now to clean alternatives of cooking or energy use?
Well, these costs are enormous, and they just get worse and worse with time. So it is not a sum that you can probably define with actual dollars, but there is a cost, an opportunity cost for not doing this. And my position is that the universal access to electricity should be, that means that everybody is entitled to use a half megawatt hour for a very, very nominal price. And everything above half a megawatt hour should be paid according to the market. But this is my private conviction. But it's an investment. It is an investment that pays back for the environment, it pays back for the society and human well-being, and it needs to be seen as an investment, not just as a pure market opportunity, because it's not enough. It is something that will pay back in 5, 10, 15, 20 years to everybody.
Yes, thank you so much, Adam. And I think what we note from there is that we can't put a figure in terms of dollars on how much we are likely to pay. I think here we are talking about if people are actually dying, if mothers are dying, we can't actually put any figure to that. I think that is what I could also pick from that.
Yes, and it's a cost. It's also a cost, disease and being not able to work and this is also generating costs for the society, for the families, for the government. The cost of no taxes, no revenues, and no jobs. So it is a loss that you can prevent by investing money.
Yes, indeed. Thank you so much, Adam. Patricia, what cost are we likely to pay if we don't transition today?
Thank you, Perez. I think I have outlined the cost we are likely to pay in the chat quite clearly, but I would like to just maybe pick up on what Adam has said, that let us look at electrification as an investment. I see there is a certain sentiment in the chat where people are saying, if we dare take on subsidies, then our governments are going to go into huge debt. We have not complained when our government when our governments take on huge debts to build roads, because we now realize that having a road network across our countries makes economic sense. So I would like for us to move our thinking to electricity in that way, that this is an investment. No one complains when our government take loans and we immunize children, because we realize that this is the next human capital for our countries and we need these children healthy. No one complains when we take on loans, to give universal education access. So it is the same thing that we are asking everyone here to look at electrification as an investment. When you, at this point, I would like to ask all of us who are not following We Planet Africa to please follow us on all our social media pages, because we are going to share so much of the findings going forward. We are going to look at deforestation in Africa and share the pictures. Sorry, deforestation in Uganda and Kenya and share the pictures. So when we talk about deforestation, and the data says that 90% of deforestation can be attributed to charcoal and firewood use. Now, if we take away people from firewood by giving them access to electricity, we are going to save our forests. When we save our forests, what are the ripple effects? The issues to do with global warming, loss of biodiversity, and all those things that we cannot put a figure to. So for me, my takeaway is, let us look at electrification as an investment, not as a cost. If it means taking on loans, let us take on those loans, because we've been taking loans for all sorts of strange things anyway. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Patricia. And I'd like where you end that we should look at this as an investment. Erastus, what are your thoughts? In just a minute, 1 minute.
Thank you so much. I want to agree with Patricia. What she has submitted regarding the data, and also the sentiment that electrification is an investment. This is very true, that once we get this electrification, it is from this electrification our countries will be able to industrialize. The only difference between Africa currently and Asia and Europe and America is only the amount of industrialization which they have. It is from this industrialization that our people will get even the generation of revenue from employment, from their foreign exchange, from their exports. And now from that, we will be able to even have the willingness to pay for this electrification. So I would urge our government that if we could be able to make this power more and more subsidized, that it is, we have that capacity of the very local person who is the poor citizen able to pay for this electrification, so that we can veer off from this path of detrimental effects of climate change, of this pollution from unclean cooking methods, because as Patricia has stated the facts, it is what we are having on the ground. People are really perishing. People are really suffering. The statistics have it that women are really on the losing end because of this impact of the unclean air, these unclean cooking methods. So if we adopt these clean cooking methods, if we adopt this investment or mega investments in electrification, we will be able to alienate our continent from some of these issues. And even that tag of Africa is a poor continent. If we are able to intensify our investment into electrification, and that is by establishment, not only the decentralized energy systems, if we are able to do mega investments so that we are able to achieve reliable power supply in our countries. Let's adopt those models of power plots. Let's be connected with Uganda. Let's be connected with Tanzania, with Ethiopia. Let's be connected so that we can have that power independence. Then now that one will strengthen us and we will be able to achieve more and more as a nation. So the cost that we will pay if we do not transition, the cost that we will pay if we are not going to allow for that just transition, is that we are continuing to grapple in these problems of climate change. And you know, Africa is the one which is hardest hit by these impacts of climate change. We are going to have the prolonged droughts from deforestation so that we can compensate for the unclean sources of energy. We are going to have droughts running over in Africa. We are going to have floods, and each and every time we have these calamities, we are sourcing more and more finances so that we can compensate our people. Why can't we use these finances and invest them in electrification so that we can curtail this climate change impact in Africa? Thank you so much.
Interesting, Erastus. Thank you so much. And I want to appreciate our panelists. Today's discussion has actually been of interest to me. I think where we began from defining that's where universal access to electricity, that it's not just 100% in urban areas and then 20% in rural areas, but 100% in all. And some of the figures that came through was the average in Saharan African being 40, I think 43, and I think Uganda is just 1 point behind, and Kenya outside. And I think this highlights the need to actually also have this coordinated effort within some of these regions. Why Kenya has 75%, Uganda is. So I think we may also want to have that discussion. And Adam also pointed out that actually right. And I think that also stood out for me. We looked at some of the statistics: 600 million Africans who are not having access to electricity. We are looking at some of the efforts that Kenya is doing, especially from what Erastus pointed out, that probably they're actually doing some of this rural electrification as a project and on a large scale. And this is really calling for dedicated investment, both from private and also, I think, public entities. I think here we speak of the government. And speaking of some of the mini-grids, but I want to hope that these mini-grids are actually able to follow what we are looking at here, because what we are defining here from what Patricia also spoke about, African Africa is having access, afford, and people are able to consume. So how do we achieve all that? And I think if we hear speaking of mini-grids, we want to be able, that is actually able to bring access and bring affordability, but also people are able to consume it as we desire. Touch, power and all that, and also the call to some of the power in Africa, the World Bank, the USAID, and all these related entities who come to the project that they increase investment by 10 times. And I think this is something to find out. We are looking at people that are dying because of lack of 600 million, 600,000 women in Africa. And Africa is not just, it's not African because it's poor, but African because it is poverty, poverty we may not define who we are. And I think that also stood out. And I'm also pointing out that without this, I think there can't be development, there can't be good livelihoods. It's really something we need to work on. He pointed out some of these figures. I think we might also have a study on this. Some of these are related to them, how to get them to Africa, having 1 megawatt per hour. What would it mean, and what cost would it be now, and what cost do we want now? So that, because some of the reasons why people are not using electricity, one that we pointed out first would be the high tariffs, but also Erastus brought in a new element that people are not using electricity, because at the end of the day, they have for example, they have a project that is calling for more awareness. And I think what also stood out in your concluding remarks is that the price we are yet to pay is so huge if we don't touch it today. Starting from what statistics were pointed out, 100,000 women dying, people having, but also looking at climate change as a very big effect of what we are doing in Africa. And I think let's look at this as an investment, not just a cost, but we are actually. I want to appreciate someone for really being with us to our participants. if subsidies are actually sustainable. And I think you've been really quite a good panel that our participants really were really interested in this talk, and you can see lots of opinions coming in here and extracted and compiled up a bit. I want to appreciate you for coming. I'm seeing some of the statistics from alcohol usage, and this is interesting. We really want to hope that you are able to send this plate, and the plate has been posted also in the chat. Please feel free to look at this plate, and you could just begin today and start with the people around you. I also shared it here. Thank you so much again. I want to ask us to turn on our videos. If you don't have any questions, we turn on our videos and let's have this record. I think this would be really an interesting time to also let's have a look at each other and take a group photo together as we conclude this webinar right now. Please feel free wherever you are. We just want to look at you and that smile, and we take together a group picture. I think kindly, please, let's turn on our videos. I'm seeing almost a third, or that's a big number. But Mercy, I'm saying some of my friends, people I probably could have met somewhere. Dan, please, let's turn on our videos and take group picture. All right, thank you so much. I wouldn't want to take us beyond here. I want to appreciate you for coming. I want to thank you and our participants and the panelists for really making time to be here. And I think this discussion has yielded big points we want to take on after here. We'll be joining you next month also for other discussions about energy or this campaign we are doing and many more other campaigns that we are coming in along, including the Chapel campaign. Thank you so much. And I want to say this is it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Have a good evening and bye.